No matter what we're faced with in life, it's always important that we don't forget that God has the power to do the impossible. There's nothing too hard for God, nothing too difficult. With God, all things are possible. God is able to step into situations and circumstances that are messy and turn things around. Just look at how he moved around during creation, how he turned chaos and darkness and emptiness, how he turned it into this marvelous glory we call our earth today. God has that kind of power. And it's important we understand and remember that when we're going through storms in life, when we have setbacks and failures and disappointments, what keeps hope alive is knowing that God ultimately will make a way where ways were not present before he steps in. God is able to make rivers in the wilderness, streams in the desert. You know, whatever it is that you believe him for, he has the power to be able to do it. And so coming into this year, you may have come into this year defeated already because last year did not go so well. Or you just have some prevailing issues in your life, prevailing conditions that just refuse to be solved from any human intervention. No human perspective has been able to help. You have to, just hold on to that belief that God has the power to do the impossible. Every time I read Psalm 126, it always encourages me. But one thing I do, I never start from the beginning of the psalm. I always go to verse 4, where the writer of the psalm, I believe Ezra, said a prayer. I always start there. And that prayer it's a simple prayer. And Ezra just said, restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negev. Restore our fortunes. So for someone who's crying for restoration, obviously this is somebody who's suffered loss and setbacks and disappointments and failures. This is somebody who's not where they should be and is crying out to God. And not only restore, but like streams in the Negev. If you know anything about Negev, it's not synonymous with flourishing, with moisture, with richness and fullness. It's a desert. And so here the psalmist is saying, God, come and restore, but understand that the situation that I'm inviting you into has defied all human intervention. You're going to have to make a way where there is no way, because there's absolutely no way out of this. And that's the prayer of Ezra. Restore our fortunes like streams in the Negev. God, come and do the impossible. But here's the encouraging thing about Ezra. Because praying to God ought to give us hope and strength. Because when we lay our anxieties before him, the peace of God that passes understanding first is what guards our hearts and our minds, right? We need to be able to receive strength from our prayers, because we ultimately have to not give up on faith and not give up on the plan of God for our lives. We have to one way or the other be able to press through this adversity, because we believe ultimately God will come in at some point. We don't know when, but we have to not quit. And you would see that transformation of from frustration to hope in the story of Ezra, in his writing here. And so when we move away from verse 4, Psalm 126, restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. Now start reading from verse 5. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. And so coming out of prayer, he came out with hope and told himself that my situation is bleak, but I have to keep on sowing. Sowing will be difficult. I acknowledge the fact that this painful experience, it's hard to keep sowing into a situation or circumstance that doesn't seem to yield anything. It becomes painful. The more we wait on God, the more it seems like, our problems are not getting solved. The situation is not turning around. It becomes more frustrating to keep at it. We sometimes lose faith. We're deflated. We're dejected. We're discouraged. But Ezra has to keep hope alive here. It's encouraging himself that those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. So I'm about to go sow now. I got tears in my eyes, but I'm still gonna keep on sowing. I'm still gonna go out carrying my seed it's important while we're waiting for God to change circumstances, it's important that we keep doing the things that we need to be doing. If you came into this year, already defeated, and all the plan that you've laid out, the plan that God has laid out for your life, the things you need to be pursuing, whether your spiritual life, your career life, whatever it is, the things that God has laid ahead of you, because of certain setbacks last year, because of certain frustrations and seeming defeats, you get tired. You don't want to, like, why do I need to do this? I did A, B, and C last year, and nothing came out of it. But Ezra is, coming out of prayer, he came out with hope. Says, yeah, you know what? This is going to be another painful 6 months of digging into the soil. But I have hope. I have hope that, that I will come out rejoicing. So I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up and let go. So I always read it that way, from verse 4, verse 5, and verse 6. And then I go to verse 1 that says, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Because while we were sowing in tears, while we went out weeping, carrying seeds to sow, God came in and restored, and it was like a dream. We weren't expecting it, right? We didn't know when the seeds were going to bear fruit. We were sowing. It was hard to keep going, but we had to just keep going. It was hard to keep grinding, keep hustling. It was hard, but we just had this hope that God was going to come through for us. So we kept on doing it. Walking the plan and the purpose of God for our lives, it's not an easy task. It is difficult. Sometimes it is painful. Sometimes it requires a lot of sacrifices. And that's why Ezra here is alluding to tears. He's alluding to tears. We want to give up, but just because we just have this faith that God will come through, we just keep pushing through adversity. And all of a sudden, God comes and does that restoration, and it was like a dream because we did not see it coming. But the reason why we experienced it was because we never gave up. We still went out there and we got in the dirt and we kept pursuing God's plan for our lives. You have to have that mindset this year. When God will ultimately do what he wants to do, it's going to come like a surprise. Nobody knows when God decides to do stuff, because God is God. His ways are higher. His ways are higher than ours. The way he thinks is totally different. But while we wait for him, we walk in line with the vision that he has laid. And so when things happen, it will be clear that yes, this breakthrough was really not because of the works of my hands, but God just decided to show up. And that's why Ezra started to say in verse 2, that our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. And it was said among the nations, because it was clear that this could only have been God. Because I was in a desert situation, I was in a dry situation that was humanly impossible to solve, but God at some point, it just came through, because I refused to give up. You got to keep sowing. Whatever didn't work last year went with last year. This year presents new opportunities. And so you may have done this and failed. As long as it is the right thing to do, you have to go back and do it. And ultimately, God shows up. It's a different thing if we tried things that failed because our methods were wrong. That's totally different. But here, when you're walking in line with God's plan and purpose for your life, you're doing the right things, but you're not seeing results yet. It is important that you do not give up and just hold that belief that at a certain point in time, God will come to restore fortunes, and it will be like a dream. God bless you.